4 SEC teams have punched their ticket to the College World Series as the Super Regionals deliver yet again. Another electric weekend of college baseball, and we're here to break it all down. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Harrison Fant. We are the Wind-Up. Before we get going, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, all across social media as well. And, of course, our website, SECUnfiltered.com. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie, guys. College World Series upcoming in just a couple of days. MyBookie's actually our partner for our trip to Omaha as SEC Unfiltered takes on the College World Series. And they've got gambling lines. They've got prop plays. They've got futures bets. Hey, who you think's going to win? Go ahead and throw some coin on it, whatever SEC team, or maybe it's an ACC team it might be. You can make some money today with MyBookie over at mybookie.ag using promo code SECU to get your special welcome offer today on your first deposit. Like I mentioned, folks, we're talking all things super regionals. What an electric weekend of baseball it was, and helping me break it all down, my good friend, co-host, colleague, Harrison Fant joins the show once again. Harrison, what's up, man? Really excited to talk about the weekend that was with you.
Chris, what's up? We had another incredible weekend of super regional baseball, and just postseason baseball continues to deliver week after week, year after year. We have our field of Omaha 8 ahead of the College World Series, and it's the best time for college baseball, and the game's growing so much. It's awesome.
College baseball never fails to deliver, Harrison. That was the case with the Supers yet again. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Looking back on the weekend that was, and we will start, Harrison, where SEC Unfiltered was boots on the ground for both days at Doug Kingsmore Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina, as Florida took on Clemson. And Harrison, I would say easily the most entertaining of the Super Regionals. Florida sweeps the Clemson Super, but that only starts the conversation, right? Saturday, we had a game. Florida throws up a 7 spot. It's an offensive shootout. Balls are leaving the yard left and right. We knew Florida was red hot going in. Then you have game 2, which, Harrison, that's got to be the craziest college baseball game I have ever seen in person. We had a little bit of everything. We had home runs to take the lead. We had a pitcher getting checked for sticky stuff. We had Jack Caglione almost getting in a scuffle down the first base line. We had umpiring blunders. We had a guy named Titsworth wearing 00 come in relief. I mean, literally, you could not have scripted the game 2 that happened. And oh, by the way, we had Florida, Michael Robertson, hitting a walk-off double, scoring the final 2 runs. Florida punching their ticket to Omaha. And my friend, I'll give you credit. You called it. Florida Gators come from what felt like the dead, go on the road to Stillwater, win. Go on the road to Clemson, win. What do you make of the weekend that was at Doug Kingsmore Stadium?
Yeah, Chris, not even to mention the potential play of the year from Cam Camarella, the Willie Mays catch, saving the season.
Best catch I've probably ever seen in person. One of the best catches I've ever seen.
Crashing into the wall, Willie Mays style, catches it in his lap, in his stomach. An unbelievable catch. It after hitting a home run. Unbelievable. Just the game had everything you could have asked for. Up until this point, I thought the Mississippi State Ole Miss game in Hoover was game of the year, but this surpassed it for me. Like you said, it had everything you could ask for and more. Just super regional atmosphere too. Unbelievable atmosphere at Doug Kingsmore Stadium with a trip to Omaha on the line. You couldn't have asked for a better game, and it was incredible. Which is to see players step up in situations in which they did was unbelievable, and that's just what is postseason baseball. Players stepping up, and for me, the biggest player that stepped up, Brandon Neely. It felt like for the Florida Gators, going 4 innings in game 1, 4 innings, 1 hit shutout, no runs, 7 strikeouts. And then to go in game 2 and go 4 more innings, you're the guy out of the bullpen. Brandon Neely has been the guy for Florida at the bullpen. And he comes out, yes, he gives up 3 runs in his 4 innings in game 2 and a huge home run, but he holds the line. It's just enough for Florida's other lineup to hit clutch at-bats, get on base, take second on like a ball past the shortstop that gets into left field or whatnot, and just next man up. It's been a mentality. It felt like the adversity that Florida's dealt with this season in the midweeks, on the weekends as well, has prepared them for this moment and has come into this rolling, playing with house money, nothing to lose, with an incredibly talented roster, one of the most talented rosters in the country. and they go on and they deliver and they win the Super Regional on the road and head back to Omaha.
Harrison, you got me fired up because I'm so happy you brought up Brandon Neely. I think that was a guy that I was sort of worried as the game was going and things were happening. And, Brandon Neely's a pitcher, right? He wasn't going to hit the walk-off. I was worried that his efforts were going to get lost in the shuffle. I'm so happy you bring that up, man, because for that kid to go back-to-back days, and they trot him back out there in game 2, and they just kept sending him out there inning after inning.
We were standing by the bullpen. It was crazy. You had Luke McNeely, who ended up throwing the last 2 innings, and Frank Menendez. It felt like they threw 3 or 4 innings in the bullpen alone. They had a shutout going in the bullpen warming up, that's for sure. The fans made sure they hear. But he threw, 80 pitches in game 1? I think it's close to 80 in game 2, it felt like.
He threw over 130 pitches in 2 days. He was fantastic. I mean, one of the unsung heroes. There were so many of those guys, right? You think about some of the big swings from Ashton Wilson and Brody Donay, and of course, Jack Caglione literally peppering a ball over the batter's eye. To put it in perspective, Harrison, this is a Florida team that at one point lost 6 straight SEC series. They had never done that over Kevin O'Sullivan. 6 straight. And now the Gators have punched their ticket to Omaha. I think here's what I'll say about Florida, Harrison, because I heard, again, we were in Clemson, as you can imagine, especially after the early game scuffle. I mean, the tensions were at an all-time high. It made for an elite college baseball atmosphere. A lot of upset Clemson folks, though, that maybe were questioning, should Florida be in? They shouldn't be in this position. And people continue to be skeptical about them. I'll just say this. If you want to have debate a couple weeks ago about Field of 64, should they have been in? Fine. By all means, do that. But Florida and the way they're hot right now, Harrison, the difference is this. Not everybody's capable of getting hot the way Florida has. The way they've been able to do so, as you and I have talked about, is they have an insane amount of talent. And really all this highlights, I think, Harrison, is something we talked about all year. It really just highlights how much they underachieved in the regular season because it was always there. This was always there. They were always capable. And, I mean, this run they're on right now, it's got Team of Destiny vibes to it. It's got 22 Ole Miss vibes to it. Now, will they complete it? Who knows? But, man, you've mentioned this, Harrison, and I agree with you. I think you got to look at this as arguably probably the best coaching job of Kevin O'Sullivan's career, to pick this team up off the mat, to go on the road to Clemson, a hostile environment, a very good baseball team with a very good head coach in Eric Backage, and to sweep them in their own super. Job well done. Florida is more than deserving of being one of the final 8 in Omaha.
Yeah, Chris. And to get to Omaha, they had to go through this top 3 Clemson team on the road at their place. And the way they got here from Stillwater was the pitching, the young kind of arms stepping up in the bullpen. And it felt like they had to do that again. That was what we were thinking. Hey, these pitchers, if they can step up again, these young guys, they got a really good shot of winning this Super Regional. In game 1, you have Liam Peterson go only an inning. He goes 1 inning, gives up 3 earned and 3 hits, and they just go straight to the bullpen then in game 1. It's unbelievable. And Fisher Jameson held the line. Then Cade Fisher didn't even record an out, gave up a run. Brandon Neely shuts it down, slams the door the rest of the way, 4 innings. And they get to Clemson's starting pitcher, and Tristan Smith. And then in game 2, Cags gives up 4 runs in under 6 innings and an unbelievable game. And then it goes straight to the bullpen, and just the bullpen, next man up out of the bullpen. But it was the same way in the lineup. Chris, because it's Cade Curlin or it's Jack Caglione, obviously with his unbelievable abilities on both sides of the ball. But Ashton Wilson, a Charleston Southern transfer, and has just gone off late in the season here and just had an incredible.
Harrison, Ashton Wilson did not have a hit until May 11th of this season.
Yeah,
and now he's a hero.
How good he's been late.
Right,
he's the 3-hole hitter at Florida right now, and the protection he has around him with Cags and Curlin and then Colby Shelton and Luke Heyman behind him, just the way that Kevin O'Sullivan has pieced and maneuvered this season, and especially the late part of the season and postseason, has been unbelievable. Chris, Florida is on a 5-game win streak right now. The last time they won 5 straight games was games 2 through 6 this season. Games 2 through 6 when they beat. This is after they lost to St. John's to open the season. Next 2 games are canceled. They beat North Florida, and then they sweep Columbia. That was the last time they won 5 straight, and they're doing 5 in a row right now. So
The
when
Gators
it matters the most.
Yeah, picking a great time to peak. I will say this in closing, Harrison, on this Super. The only negative thing I will say about it is the clown show that were the umpires doing too much in that game too. I don't know why NCAA baseball, the NCAA, MLB, I think, has come a long way in like really letting personality shine and letting guys be themselves and
The
celebrate,
flavor.
having some flavor, some spice, some juice to the game. And college baseball is just stuck in this archaic, guys are getting, warnings and tossed. And we're having 15-minute meetings over what? We're having a guy, Jack Crichton from Clemson, ejected. Eric Backage gets ejected. Jack Leggett gets ejected. Like, the umpiring was absurd in that second game. So that's the only negative I have.
In that play with Caglione down the line, no one should have been thrown out.
Warn both
No
sides
one.
and keep it
You
moving.
warn both sides, move on.
Yeah. It's literally an
Eric Backage
intense
to go out there
baseball game.
for Eric Backage to go out there after former Clemson head coach Jack Leggett, who has over 900 wins as Clemson head coach, now director of player development, gets tossed. Backage goes out, he gets tossed, gets his money's worth, and then to walk off and fires up the Doug Kingsmore crowd. We were like, oh my gosh. We were sitting there by the Florida dugout, like, this place is rocking. I think Clemson's going to win this game, it felt like. It felt like a huge momentum swing, and that was definitely his plan, obviously, but just the relentless, comeback ability from Florida, which has been Clemson all season. They've had 25 comeback wins, Chris, this season. And Florida just shutting the door, giving them a taste of their own medicine. Felt like just an unbelievable game. Got everything you could ask for in a game. It was the best game of the year by far.
Harrison is our friend Nick De La Torre and the guys over at Stadium and Gale. Shout out to them that had me on their show earlier in the week, a Florida Gators podcast. They said, you let Florida in the club, and now they're on the table buying bottles and tequila shots for everybody. They're going crazy. So you shouldn't have let Florida in the club. That's all you can say. You should not have let the Florida Gators in the club. Harrison, I told you I was going to jump around. Let's go to another place where SEC Unfiltered, specifically you, was boots on the ground. Let's talk the Athens Super Regional. Again, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but again, you were there last night, Game 3. NC State takes 2 of 3, punches their ticket. What an interesting series this was, Harrison. NC State blasts Georgia in Game 1. What was it? Colton Smith, I think, started Game 1, gave up 10 hits, 8 earned runs. I mean, it was over before it started in that game. Game 2 shows how crazy baseball can be. Georgia bounces back. They kick NC State's ass. It comes down to a Game 3. And we talked about Harrison. This was one. I think both you and I were not confident in our pick at all, picking Georgia. NC State, scrappy, gritty, resilient. And give us an idea what you saw last night, specifically being there in the deciding game, and also just thoughts on the series as a whole.
Yeah, Chris. Last night's game 3, like Game 7 atmosphere in MLB with Omaha on the line. Your season's on the line. It was the best atmosphere I've seen at Foley Field of any game I've been to. And Foley Field is not a big stadium at all. Like seating capacity wise, I think it holds like 4,000 maybe. It's really small, but I mean the Kudzu Crazies, I believe is what they call them in right field. I mean, I think they put bleachers up there. It felt like there was a section or two of bleachers up there. It was standing room only. It was unbelievable. It was the loudest atmosphere I've heard at Foley Field, and it really felt like everything was on line. And to start the game, Georgia fans were in every pitch, every out, just cheering, getting hyped up for their guys every out when they're on defense, and every base hit on offense. It was really cool environment to be in, especially with what Georgia has been known for from my experiences going there. But I mean, like you said, it's just we had no idea what to expect in Game 3 after a blowout in Game 1 for NC State. And then Georgia blows them out in Game 2. And then Game 3, I felt like it was going to be close. We didn't know if it was going to be high scoring or low scoring, just, who's got pitching left, it felt like. But Georgia goes and brings back Wes Johnson, pitching coach and head coach, brings back his guy and Colton Smith, who's been their best pitcher, it feels like all year. Maybe not statistically, but is their best pitcher and best arm all year. In the first game, he goes 1 inning, only 38 pitches. So he's available, obviously. But he gives up 10 hits, 10 runs, 8 of them earned. And then you go to him out of the pen first. It felt like, this is the move. You bring your guy out, flush out last appearance for him. He goes 3 in the third, 5 hits, 3 runs, and it just felt like it was downhill from there. But the biggest thing for me, Chris, every single ball, and I told you this when I was there, every single ball NC State hit and play, it felt like and sounded like it was 100 miles an hour off the bat. Every single ball was tattooed. It was touched. It was
They hit some mammos in that game.
yeah. I mean, even the outs were lasers.
Yeah.
I mean, deep fly balls, hard ground ball. I mean, it felt like everything was getting barreled, and it's like this has got to just things have got to get through. Like balls have got to fall. Something's going to push through for NC State. But then you have on the pitching side, Jacob Duden, a dude on the mound. He comes into the bullpen, bases loaded with 1 out with Charlie Condon up. And you're sitting there like, is it Georgia fan? You're like, oh, the house money right here. We got the best player in the nation up, bases loaded, 1 out. What could go wrong? And Jacob Duden just slider, just punches him out, just dominates him with sliders and punches him out. 2
NC
outs.
State, to your point, NC State ran out those 2 relievers they ran out. Those are 2 of the best sliders. I mean, they were showing on the broadcast the swing and miss rate. Those guys' sliders was like 60%. And I think the college baseball average is like, or the average percentage is like 29%. So, I mean, those were 2 of the best sliders in college baseball, and they were just dicing, like you said.
Jacob Duden and Derek Smith had some just their best stuff. I mean, I think of all year, and it's the time to have it. But 2 outs, bases loaded, you hold the line, don't let any runs cross, and you fire. And there was a really large amount of NC State fans there supporting they were loud too. They were loud, and just that felt like a huge momentum swing. It felt like a suck of energy out of the stadium. And then next pitch, first pitch of their next half inning, bomb, like an absolute no doubter. And just a feeling in there, the atmosphere with just Georgia fans, it was, oh my God. It felt like they got their souls ripped out almost. But then
it was like every time, to your point in that game, it was like every time Georgia did anything, NC State punched back even harder. Like every time.
Yeah, I mean, the next inning after that, Georgia had 2 on, I think less than 2 outs. No runs scored, slammed the door shut. I mean, Duden was a dude. And then Derek Smith to come in and close it. I mean, just relentless. Like the way I kind of characterized NC State in this game and in their season as a whole, because they've lost two huge key pieces of or I think 3 huge key pieces of their team. One at the beginning of the year in the first practice, and then 2 late in May, I think, or early May and April. Relentless pack. It's just been a relentless pack, and Coach Elliott Avon, and just a lot of mature veteran guys in that clubhouse too. And so it's really proven. I mean, the cream rises, and it rose here, and they're headed back to Omaha, where COVID-19 cannot stop them this year, Chris, where they had 13 players available in their last game before having to forfeit.
Yeah, they are playing with a chip on the shoulder. Absolutely. For Georgia, before we get off this one, Harrison, for Georgia, they're going to be back. Wes Johnson's club. I mean, the culture change in just a short time. Yes, there will be questions next year. I mean, you lose Charlie Condon. That's going to be a huge piece you have to replace. They got to go out and get some pitching. But, I think while it's disappointing the Dogs weren't able to punch the ticket, I definitely don't think it should take away from – I mean, we said before the season, Harrison, that, hey, if Georgia baseball can just make the postseason, that's a successful year one. Not only did they do that, they were a top 8 national seed. They hosted a super regional. Wildly successful year one for Wes Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said this too. I put it on social media. I think Coach Wes Johnson should be getting Coach of the Year award. Just the job that he's done in 1 year being the head coach of Georgia. I mean, they had great years in 2019 and 2020, but then COVID stopped that season, obviously. But since it's just been felt mediocre, kind of around that kind of middle of the pack. But to do this in your first year, to be a top 8 national seed in the SEC in your first year coaching, host a regional, win it, host a super regional, and you have a chance to go to game 3 to go to Omaha. Just an unbelievable job by Coach Wes Johnson. He's got my vote for Coach of the Year.
A Georgia program that was 11-19 in SEC play last year. Top 8 national seed this year. So incredible job by Wes Johnson, like you said. And I would agree with you, Coach of the Year. I think
it felt. We talked about this too. It felt so fitting that in Charlie Condon's last at bat as a Georgia Bulldog,
home run.
He blasted a laser of a home run. Home run number 37 on the year. It's just unbelievable to extend his record, the NCAA record. It was only fitting, Chris. And it went out with the bang too, because Trey Phelps hit a laser deep center. Where they had a chance. I think the tying run was at the plate. So
yeah,
they went down fighting.
Went down fighting indeed. Harrison, to Knoxville, Tennessee, the number 1 overall national seed. Tennessee, I know last week we talked about, and you said taking care of business. Tennessee took care of their business. It went an extra game, I think, than most of us expected, but the Vols in game 3 prevail over Evansville, which was a fantastic story. Again, the result we expected happened, Hibberson. It took a little bit longer than I think we expected, though. Your thoughts on Tennessee taking down Evansville in 3 games and punching their ticket to Omaha?
Yeah, Chris, it was. I think everyone in Knoxville and around outside of the Evansville program expected them to go in there and take care of business in 2 games again, and it felt really lackadaisical watching in game 2 after they go up, 4-0 in the second. It felt like they just kind of took their foot off the gas, kind of just put it on cruise at 65, in a 70 speed zone, and just, it felt like they just, weren't applying pressure. You got them down. You got to put your foot on their throat. You can't give them any hope. And it felt like this Evansville team. I mean, as great of a season they've had, and just incredible run this postseason, it felt like they felt like they were in the fight the whole time, and they kept fighting and clawing back. And you go from 4-0 to tied at 5. I mean, it just, not the Tennessee kind of, full game that we've seen out of them, obviously, this entire season, but just it wasn't like how the style of their play has been this season. So that was a little bit concerning for me. And then I feel like more Tennessee fans than expected were kind of on edge in game 3. I mean, going into game 3, I expected them to have significantly more pitching, and just obviously the deeper lineup in game 3. I thought that was going to put them over the edge, and it proved to do so. But Drew Beam got hit around in game 2. The bullpen kind of held it a little bit together. But then in game 3, it was just all offense. It 12-1 on 12 hits. I mean, it was they really stepped up and said, hey, like, we're not going to let this happen. We're not going to be that 1 seed that goes down again, because no 1 seed has won it since 1999 when Miami did it. And Xander Seacrest just kind of took that, I feel like, in this start, and go just over 6 innings, shut out baseball in 6 hits. And then the bullpen just next man up, took care of business. And, they're headed back to Omaha, Chris.
I know a lot of Tennessee fans were very nervous going into that game 3, because, again, we talked about before, we've seen Tennessee fall flat on the biggest stages, whatever sport it might be, and we've seen them stub their toe, like I mentioned, in the biggest moments. But I never had a doubt that Tennessee was going to find a way. There was no way. They were wearing the black jerseys, right? I showed you. Vol Baseball was calling for a blackout. There was no way they were going to drop that game 3 at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, and I think it's fitting. Obviously, they, at the number 1 overall national seed, are in. To your point, it was kind of weird in game 2, the way it was just sort of this lackadaisical approach, like, hey, there is a trip to Omaha on the line. But I will say, Harrison, give Evansville a lot of credit. That is a hell of a shot in the arm for their program, that they can, you say don't believe in moral victories. I'm not saying that, but you got to be realistic too. For a program like Evansville to go into Lindsey Nelson Stadium to beat Tennessee in a super regional, even though you don't win that super, incredible job by that staff, by that team. I think I heard their coach say that's something we can forever carry. This Evansville team will forever have that. And by the way, I do want to highlight this, Harrison. Incredible job by Tennessee, again, punching the ticket. And the post-game rant that Tony Vitello went on after game 3, stuff of legends. You can think whatever you want about Tony Vitello. Some of you will adamantly disagree with what I'm about to say. But how could you not want to play for that guy? Because listening to him talk, the way he is, he's a guy that players want to go to war for. That's why they've been able to recruit. That's why they've been able to portal. One of the best in the game, man. And Tennessee baseball, goes without saying, they're going to be around for a long time with him at the helm.
Yeah, Chris. I mean, it's you said it best. It's just, how can you not want to play for a guy like that? And he seems to be such a great players coach, and it's awesome to see. And that's, I think, what college baseball needs. And going into game 3, Chris, I think that the players, I think they had a meeting. I think they had a team meeting, said, hey, we got to take care of business with no messing around here. Go out, do your job. I think that was kind of the motto, and it felt like guys on both sides of the ball did it. I mean, you had Christian Moore hit 2 bombs, Billy Amick, Dean Curley, Dalton Bargo, and Kyle Stark did, and the pitching took care of their jobs. I think that's maybe a chip that Tennessee needed after how kind of, I don't want to say they've cruised into this point where they are, but maybe it's just like a, hey, reality check heading into Omaha, and then Tony Vitello's speech at the end, and then how he probably addressed his team after. hey, this can't happen in Omaha. I think it's going to be really good for them as they head up to, go compete for a national championship, Chris, against a ton of really good talent and great teams. So
try to become the first #1 overall national seed to do it since 1999. Miami Hurricanes. Yep. Let's go to Lexington Harrison. This one was wildly entertaining too. And we could have started with this one, honestly, because for the first time ever in program history, the Kentucky Wildcats are headed to the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. And Harrison, I feel like the story of this one, man, the story was the pitching. Trey Poozer, Mason Moore, they were electric. I mean, Kentucky got some big knocks, but I mean, that pitching staff, the way they were able to shut down Bazana, shut down the entire Oregon State lineup, the defense that Kentucky played, and Harrison, it was like we talked about, man. I mean, Kentucky baseball, you may not love the way they play. It may not be the flashiest or the sexiest. They're kind of like NC State. There's nothing flashy about them. There's no Jack Caglione superstar walking around. Death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, we saw Harrison, and I know you did. We saw Kentucky score on a pass ball.
A wild pitch from second.
Pitch. The guy
Nolan McCarthy.
Second. Pitcher's like, kind of just lackadaisical, walked on. Scores from second. I'm like, that is the most Kentucky way to score a run, which I think it was to take the lead, by the way. I mean, the most Kentucky way ever to score a run. Congratulations to Nick Mingione's club, Big Blue Nation, go into Omaha, first time ever. Your thoughts on the weekend in Lexington?
Yeah, Chris. I mean, there's two kind of aspects of this game, right? Just the pitching job and just incredible outing that Trey Poozer had in game 1, going 7 shutout innings, 1 hit. Unbelievable. I mean, to do that against a powerful Oregon State lineup, and like I said, they don't play as well outside of Corvallis. They haven't as they do at home. And I mean, you could say that for most teams, but I think especially the Beavs, to shut down the lineup that they have of Travis Bazana, Micah McDowell, Gavin Turley, and it's a deep lineup. And to do that in that kind of high pressure of a situation, the College of Charleston transfer Poozer just stepped up and delivered for the Wildcats and set the tone, it felt like, for the series. On the backs, I mean, it was a 10-0 shutout. It wasn't like a 2-0 shutout. It was a 10-0 shutout. The lineup took care of their job in the box. They really got to Aiden May, a really, really good pitcher for Oregon State, and took care of business and head into game 2. Not playing with house money, but playing with a chip on their shoulder even more, because so many people have doubted them all year. And Trey Poozer and Mason Moore have guided this team on the pitching staff wise to this point, it feels like. I mean, Poozer, the College Charleston transfer, like I said, he's 7-1 this year, Chris, with a sub-3.5 ERA in 83 innings. He's been incredible and a huge key piece of this Wildcat program under Nick Mingione, who you also could say could be Coach of the Year. He makes a very, very great case for Coach of the Year. I think it has to be between him and Wes Johnson. But then, game 2, Mason Moore, that felt like what the series was going to be. Kind of low-scoring, scrappy, tight games. And to do that and just be relentless, because in game 2, they're the visiting team, Chris. You have to remember that, because in the game 3, they would be the home team. Mason Moore, a shorter outing, but he does his job outside of just a bunch of walks. He had 6 walks in just over 3 innings, but the bullpen comes behind him and lets up only 2 hits. 2 hits, Chris, against this stacked lineup, like I said. And just like the gutty, tough defense, stealing 2 bases in 1 pitch kind of performance from Kentucky is how they're here and how they're headed to Omaha.
And you mentioned, Harrison, the people that have been doubting them. I was joking with you before we went live that I think I'm contractually obligated now. I have to pick against Kentucky because to this point, it's gone pretty well for them. I picked against them in their own regional. I picked against them in their own super, and they've won both rounds. So, again, man, it's Nick Mingione, the job he's done. I think Kentucky, their biggest challenge upcoming, maybe the fact they're going to have to fend off some really big schools. There might be a Texas that comes knocking that wants a new head coach. And, I mean, what they've earned that attention because what Nick Mingione has done. And, I mean, it's incredible. I can't wait to watch them in Omaha, the style of baseball they play. And like you mentioned, man, it was a magical weekend against, again, a very, very good Oregon State club. And I thought it was impressive the way Kentucky's pitchers frustrated Bazana. You could tell he was a lot of guys in that lineup were very like you could see it. I mean, I thought maybe not saying their composure wasn't, but you I was surprised the amount of frustration I visibly saw from Oregon State hitters, but I give credit to Kentucky pitchers, man. They were filthy all weekend.
Yeah, Chris, to touch on that real quick, Bazzana, he's going to be he's Cape Cod MVP last summer. He's going to be a top 3 pick. He had 1 hit in 2 games. He went 1 for 7. And one of them was a massive situation in the spot. I can't remember who was on the mound, but he just got handcuffed. It felt like the whole at bat with 2 runners in scoring position in a huge situation. I believe it was in game 2. And just to do that against a player of that caliber, I mean, unbelievable. Just stepping up when it matters most, Chris. And like you mentioned earlier, Kentucky and NC State, 2 similar styles of play, no big, top of the draft boards names, or just, don't have a Hagen Smith on the mound. We're going to see those 2 styles of play go head to head immediately in Hoover. In game 3 at Hoover, Saturday, June 15th at 1 o'clock. I think it's going to be such a scrappy and fun game to watch, Chris.
Yeah, Harrison, to your point, we're going to break that one down, preview it, predict it, all that good stuff when we do our College World Series preview. That is such a fun game of, good on good, but the styles they play. Like that is the ultimate. If you love scrappy baseball, if you love like sandlot baseball, Kentucky NC State is must-see TV. Harrison, let's go to the final SEC Super Regional. Texas A&M is back in Omaha as they take down the Oregon Ducks, a clean sweep in College Station. Bluebell Park was shaking all weekend. The bad news, of course, Harrison, Braden Montgomery goes down. He is out for the postseason, probably out for an extended period of time. Really unfortunate situation, but guys stepping up, right? Texas A&M with a really gutsy win in game 1, and then the 9-run inning in game 2 where Oregon, they controlled, Harrison, 75% of that game. Texas A&M, like I mentioned, they explode in that one. It was crazy. I almost felt bad for the Oregon pitchers because it was just like walk after walk after walk after hit. And you're just like, if you've ever played baseball and you've pitched, we've all been there where it's just like nightmare scenario activated. And then again, the big grand slam there later in the game that really solidified. And you knew at that point A&M was going to get the win. But Oregon, a solid team, but I think Texas A&M, Harrison, just flexing their muscles in this one. Your thoughts on the weekend that was for Texas A&M, and also the Braden Montgomery injury? How do you think, does that change your perception of A&M moving forward?
Yeah, Chris, it's such a horrible injury for such a fantastic player, one of the best in the country, and he was Pac-12 Player of the Year last year, and to come in and do the job that he's done, be the kind of centerpiece of this A&M offense. It's a freak injury. It just kind of happened. You can't blame the third base coach for sending him or anything. It's just a freak injury that happened, and hopefully it's a fast and speedy full recovery for him. And it's going to be a huge piece out of their lineup, Chris. It's like I said, the centerpiece of their lineup. But they have so many dudes around him. They're such a deep lineup that prove that they can produce still. Clearly. They put up 15 runs, Chris, in a super regional. It was unbelievable. It was, and then to step up, Caden Kent hit that grand slam, that spot who he was playing for in position of Braden Montgomery. To do that, he had 77 at bats, I think, coming into this super regional. To go 3 for 5 with 5 RBIs and a grand slam. Talk about next man up. That's what that kind of felt like for me. Mm-hmm. But as a whole, this series, you look at game 1, Oregon comes in hot and touches up one of the best pitchers in the SEC in Ryan Prager. He doesn't even get out of the second inning before getting up 6 earned, Chris. A big strikeout guy, only 1 strikeout, 6 earned on 7 hits. But then who comes out of the pen first? One of the best relievers in the country, in Chris Cortez, has, I think, the filthiest stuff out of the bullpen of any pitcher in college baseball right now. 100 miles an hour fastball with just a 94, 93 mile sinker. And it's just, you don't want to see him when you're in the box. It's just the best stuff I've seen all year out of the pen, like I said. And he goes almost 6 innings, 2 hits, no runs on 10 strikeouts. He struck out over half the people he saw, it felt like. It was just dominance from him. And you want to talk about slamming the door shut? He did that. And then Evan Ashenbeck comes and gets his 8th save of the year in just under 2 innings, striking out 3. Just that duo of those 2 guys out of the pen, who I said were going to be their focal points in this series, took care of business. And it set the tone for the series. Yes, you could say the offensive explosion, but Oregon has a really good lineup. A really good lineup. I don't think we can take credit away from them for that. But the bullpen just shut it down in that first game, and then the offense exploded in game 2 behind that 9-run inning. It was both sides doing their jobs when it mattered most, and they're headed back to Omaha under Jim Slauson-Eggle.
That duo, like you mentioned, of Ashenbeck and Cortez is just you know who Ashenbeck reminds me of? If college baseball fans might remember this name, Tyler Webb from South Carolina. Just a huge lefty. I think Ashenbeck should probably win Stopper of the Year. But a guy
9
that
saves now after the game 2.
right. Yeah, and he's, I don't know that you would label Ashenbeck as their closer or if he's an 8th inning guy or a 7th, but he's just that dude that comes out of the bullpen and he's just going to shut it down. Cortez is same way. So when you got, it's very rare in college baseball. We see that kind of, I feel like Harrison, the whole having a setup man, having a closer, like I feel like those roles in college baseball they're obviously not as prevalent as like at the major league level. So we don't see that nearly as much. And to see that duo at the back end, like you mentioned, like the offense is going to get all the praise and the highlights, and probably as they should, but that duo in the back end, that's going to make them lethal in the College World Series. I mean, those guys are
because in
incredible.
game 2, Shane Sado, who's had been kind of really good this second half of the season, had some really good starts to the sub-3 ERA. He got touched up too. He didn't even make it out of, I think, the second inning. He didn't even make it out of the first inning before getting up 2 runs. They went straight to the pin. It just felt like a weirdly bullpen game for A&M, which I don't think we were expecting. But you have Ashenbeck coming in the back end the last 3 innings and shut it down. He hit 6-1 with 9 saves, Chris, with a sub 1.7 ERA. I mean, if that sounds, that's Stopper if I've ever heard one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not Kevin Kopps from Arkansas who won Golden Spikes, but that's a Stopper if I've ever heard one. And that's what you need in Omaha.
And Jim Schlossnagle and the boys are officially back in Omaha with the dreams of a national title on the mind. Harrison, before we get out of here, let's touch on the other 3 supers really quickly. The ACC obviously has 4 of the spots, the SEC with 4 as well. But the other 3 supers we didn't touch on, Tallahassee, Charlottesville, and Chapel Hill. Florida State takes down UConn, Virginia takes down Kansas State, and North Carolina takes down West Virginia. Your thoughts on those 3 supers and the 3 teams that came out of that? Again, FSU, Virginia, and North Carolina.
Yeah, Chris, and to touch on those in order, Florida State, it felt like
24-3 in game 1. 24-3 in game 1, man. Insane.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that, you give credit. It's a really blue collar UNC team, UConn team, to go in there. I mean, when it's that big of a gap in score, and you're playing for the series, you're not going to throw your best arms out of the pen. You're going to try to win game 2 and game 3. That it feels like at that point. So that's why I think the score got a little more out of hand than what people think. But and then game 2, Florida State just with Jamie Arnold, and then you have James Tibbs the third, who's probably going to be a late first-round pick, hit 3 bombs. I mean, they took care of business more than anyone in this postseason, it felt like. And then you have Virginia, who also took care of business in 2. What's the biggest thing for me? Yes, they have one of the best lines in the country, statistically, top 10 in most important categories in offense in the postseason, let alone the season as a whole nationally ranked. Their pitching has really stepped up, Chris, behind Jay Wolford in that 2 spot. Former UVA quarterback at one point, 2022 and 21, I believe. I mean, he's just been unbelievable for them. And the pitching's really stepped up, and that's what's been kind of holding them back this season. But if they keep getting this pitching kind of performance that they have from guys, they have a really good shot to be in that final game winning a national championship. But another team they're going to go through is that ACC team in UNC. Chapel Thrill. They're not going to be playing in Chapel Thrill this time, Chris, but it feels like UNC is going to travel really, really strong. Their fans, they haven't been there since 2018. It's crazy to think that they haven't been there that long, as prestigious as a program as they are year after year. But Scott Forbes has the Tar Heels back in Omaha. Just the 3-headed snake out of the pen that they have with Dalton Pence leading that kind of enclosing door. He's their stopper for sure. And just the gutsiness that he does it in high stress situations and high, tense environments against teams like LSU, it's unbelievable. I mean, they have Vance Honeycutt, who had an incredible postseason. Just felt like he's been such a big impact for them. He's going to be a top draft pick. I mean, he feels like a Hall of Famer in Tar Heel history, if not one of the best. I think he owns a single season home run record for them too. But then you have young guys like Gavin Gallagher, who hits a walk-off grand slam against LIU in the regional, and then it just plays a big role in the super regionals here. It felt like they're very deep and they're dangerous as well on both sides of the ball. They took care of business as well against West Virginia and Randy Mays' final season. We talk about that and the magic that has. College baseball is a huge storyline kind of game, it feels like. And to do it in game one, in that insane game one that was against Derek Clark for West Virginia, who threw, Chris, how many was it? 144 pitches?
Yeah, almost 150. That kid was electric. I don't care what the final
It,
result was. That kid was electric.
I mean, he left it all on the line on the field. I mean, losing that for West Virginia was huge that game because they had to win the Derek Clark game if they're going to win this series. They had to. I mean, their bullpen coach Maisie said was already kind of dealing with a lot of injuries and just already short. So that's also why he went super long. But he kind of has built up for that. I think he's had 4 or 5 starts over 120 pitches. But you had to win that. And then they were there. They were right there to win that game one. But UNC finds a way and they take care of business. But Derek Clark said, just to mention this real quick, in his post, he looked to see how many strikes he threw of the 140 something pitches, and it was over 100 strikes. Unbelievable. I mean, it was awesome. And I think those ACC clubs, we have an all ACC SEC challenge in Omaha. Should just call it that kind of going forward. It feels like it's just full of, like we talk about, the best team in the country, and it feels like just the best talent overall. But Chris, think about it. Now that Travis Bazzana and Charlie Condon are out, none of the 3 Golden Spikes finalists will be in Omaha. In Hagen Smith, Travis Bazzana, and Charlie Condon. But the one that got snubbed,
there is a guy named Jack Caglione out there. So
yeah.
there is a guy named Jay Slavelet out there as well. So the talent, there will be no shortage of it. But to echo your point, man, I mean, it is 2 conferences, SEC, ACC, and I will say, and SEC folks will like to hear this, I do think the ACC teams are really, really strong. I mean, NC State, if you want to debate that one, fine. Like, they're a scrappy, gritty. But the other ones, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, Harrison, I think all 3 of those are capable of winning the whole thing. I mean, these are like elite level. They will go toe-to-toe with anybody in the country. So it is going to be wildly fascinating to see how it shakes out. Of course, again, we're going to talk about the bracket when we preview everything and get predictions. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the way the bracket shapes up, this SEC, ACC challenge, as you just called it, the field's elite, man. It's one of the I think they said we've got 7 of the top 16 national seeds that are in Omaha. First time that's happened since 2013. So, I mean, it's one of the most elite fields we've had in quite some time.
Yeah, it toe-to-toe. North Carolina and Virginia are going to go toe-to-toe in game 1.
Yeah. And then we've got Florida, Texas A&M. Like, we've got some games we've seen
Tennessee,
before.
Florida State.
Very familiar conference foes that'll be going up against each other in Omaha, Nebraska. Going to be a lot of fun. So, again, right around the corner, the College World Series will set to take place and begin on Friday. SEC Unfiltered will be boots on the ground. But before we do that, check us out later this week. Harrison and I, as soon as tomorrow, we'll be breaking it all down, previewing, predicting the College World Series. Going to be a lot of fun. Harrison, as we wrap up the Super Regional round, just 8 teams remain. Final thoughts on the weekend that was when it comes to the Supers.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, postseason baseball in college delivers year after year. The storylines, the plays, the fans, the environments. It's unbelievable atmospheres, and it's getting better year after year. The game of college baseball is growing, and we love to see it. We're trying to grow it as well, and it's baseball is awesome, Chris. And I think people are starting to realize that college baseball is just incredible. Just the traditions, the storylines, the environments. It's all, and it's only going up. It's only getting better, Chris. And if you don't watch college baseball, start watching college baseball.
I've said many times, Harrison, I feel bad for the people this time of year that don't watch college baseball, because I tell you this, as much as I love football, I don't know that there will be a college football game more entertaining than that Florida Clemson Super I watched on Sunday. I can tell you that right now.
Game of the year.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it always delivers, just like you, Harrison. You always deliver on this show, so I appreciate you. And we appreciate you guys tuning in here on the latest edition of The Wind Up. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get podcasts. Of course, all across social media as well on our website, secunfiltered.com. As you can imagine, content will be bleeding out of the eyeballs. It already is. When we get boots on the ground in Omaha, it is going to be an electric factory coming from yours truly, both Harrison and I, as we're in Omaha, Nebraska. And again, guys, make sure you stay tuned to this show right here. Check us out wherever you get shows, podcasts, YouTube, etc. And our friends at MyBookie, by the way, make sure you're gambling on all the action, and we'll dive into our picks later in the week as well. For Harrison Fant, I'm Chris Phillips. Guys, we appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.